Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC. I'll be your facilitators for today's webinar. For those of you who are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is the largest and most effective provider of customized counseling and education for small businesses in Virginia. Most of our services are offered locally in 28 locations throughout the Commonwealth. Today's webinar is one of our educational offerings and is part of our ongoing webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. Today's topic is What's in Your Wallet? Taking and Making Payments Online for Service Professionals. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, a web and mobile strategist, author of Solo Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Web Small Business Marketing Strategy Explained, and president of W3 Consulting. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Hello, thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC for having me here on the webinar series. What's in your wallet? Taking and making payments online for service professionals is our topic today, as Tracy said. And just a couple of housekeeping items. Ask questions now, as Tracy said. This is the time to do so. You have the questions panel. I'm happy to, stay at the end and answer as many questions as I can in terms of the content that we're talking about today. If you need me afterward, you can always tweet at me at W3 Consulting. I'm a Twitter fan, and you can go ahead and hashtag Beyond Google so I know this is regarding one of the webinars, and that way I can sort of have a context for the question coming at me. And I'll also have my email address on the final slide, so if you need to email me, you can go do so, and that'll be on the final slide. The Virginia SBDC also puts out tweets about other programs in addition to updates regarding the webinar series, so go ahead and follow at Virginia SBDC over on Twitter for that and engage with them. So for those of you who don't know me, I am also a Google Small Business Advisor to the Google Small Business team, and so there are a group of us who help small business owners like yourself with really the fundamentals of the Google products that touch small business and help them. That is Google My Business, which is the listing service, the directory that you use to publish on Google Maps. Then there is Google AdWords, Google Analytics, and Google Search Console. And so getting businesses sort of familiarized with those tools that are used on Google. So if you have questions, it's a free platform. Just go to g.co/GSBC for Google Small Business Community. You'll log into your Google account and you can ask the experts there. I'm also an Evernote certified consultant, the note-taking software, and I am also an Hootsuite Global Brand Ambassador. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me with your Hootsuite social media dashboard questions. All right, today's agenda. We will be talking about sort of best practices. We're going to start off with talking about best practices regarding taking and making payments using web and mobile technologies as a service professional. We will then go into some of the tools that I have sort of cherry-picked regarding making payments online and via mobile. And then we will talk about the tools for receiving payments, taking payments. Sorry, we'll probably flip that. We'll take payments and then we'll talk about making payments using, again, the same sets of technology, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. And so to start off, to sort of contextualize this, the topic came about because as a service professional myself, I recognized over the last many years of being in business that the statistics are sort of on the side of taking and making payments online and via the web for service professionals purely for the myriad of benefits of efficiency and reduction in theft and fraud and all of those kinds of things. And yet for some reason small businesses seem to hesitate making that change and had for quite some time. At this point though in history, it seems as though small businesses finally getting on board, and yet they're making several sort of mistakes along the way. So I wanted to sort of talk about some of those things that we can do, especially since the bulk majority of small businesses, I think the statistic that the National Association for the Self-Employed put out in 2016, as far as I remember, I think it's like 80%, 79, 80% of small businesses are self-employed. And then, the next vast majority of that, I think it's about 17% of those, have less than 10 employees. So when you're taking and making payments as a small business, and especially as a service professional, you're likely making that to another company, a vendor, or to a 1099 contractor. You're very infrequently making those payments via payroll services. So I won't be talking about payroll, I won't be talking about e-commerce or any of those other things today. I really want to focus in on the things that really are the transaction of money between individuals and other small businesses. Okay, so that's really what I want to talk about today. And so let's get started. Let's start with the best practices for taking and making payments. And so in the vein of taking payments, what we really want to start off with is understanding this idea that is accounts receivable, right? And accounts receivable is this accounting term that many of us probably have heard, but don't really know what it is, all right? And in the course of business, accounts receivables or accounts receivable is really that the situation where a client has made a purchase, but they haven't paid you yet. And so the first thing that I can sort of recommend to folks in terms of best practice is that you attempt to, you know, as much as possible not be a small business lender, right? So the moment you have accounts receivable is the moment you've become a small business lender. And so this really comes to the effect of making in accounting what we call days sales outstanding, meaning the number of days it takes to get paid for something as short as possible. So as much as you can take payments upfront as a service professional especially, the better. Okay, so in most small business retail, we know that businesses walk in the, so clients walk in the front door, and they usually pay at the time of purchase. And in service businesses, that's sometimes not the case, right? And many times not the case. And so as much as possible, you need to set into place, the infrastructure for you to be able to do that. And being able to take payments online and via mobile, and to some extent even, in person, through credit card chip readers and so on and so forth today, you can really close the gap on those issues. So number one, or number two, I suppose, keep track of your accounts receivable. I don't know how many businesses that I ask, how much money are you making? And, what do you know about your accounting? Very infrequently do the businesses that I come to contact with, especially in micropreneur and solopreneur, categories, actually keep a clear accounting record that they can look at and produce reports based on. So you really need to use the accounting software that's available. I'm going to go over some of those today, but the software is available, and in the case of an invoicing software, typically free. So you really need to use the software in order to be able to keep track. And there's a number of reasons for wanting to keep track, right? One, you want to know who owes you money. You want to be able to effectively figure out where cash flow is going to be, so you can project cash flow based on when invoices are coming due. And you can't do that if you see individual invoices sitting in paper on your desk, or even email PDF invoices that you've sent out. You need a tool that can capture all of that data, synthesize it, so that you can therefore look at it and make good business decisions. Like, oh, you know what, I have these 10 invoices coming due in the next 4 to 5 weeks, and I've got this other big bill coming up that I have to pay. Well, if you can talk to your vendor about paying them in the time frame after you get paid, at least some of those 10 invoices that are outstanding, you're much more likely to equalize and stabilize cash flow than to have to put something on credit, potentially have it, fall into a period where you have to pay interest on that, and therefore be worse off at the end of the day, right? So you can actually navigate some of those cost savings measures through negotiating with vendors that way. But you need to know the information, and you can't fundamentally know that without putting it into the software, usually. Next up is having a published policy, and that comes to invoicing and payment policies. Most often than not, what I don't see small businesses doing is telling their clients how they're going to be paid. There are certain industries where most of that is regulated, and in those service professionals where it is regulated, most often than not, there is a signed fee agreement where you tell the client what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. But many times, some of the more functional pieces, that the fact that you can take payment online or by credit card, are not itemized. And so therefore, since they aren't, the customer presumes that they're going to have to pay in some old world-fashioned way, sending a check or a wire transfer or something else like that, and that slows them down to even think about it. And remarkably, there are many institutions that still do pay by check or other means that are considered traditional payment mechanisms, and you just have to sort of update them about the opportunity to be able to pay by these other means, and many times they'll be willing to pay by credit card and even pay by credit card online, through an invoicing software to be able to speed up the process. So I'm going to show you some of those software today, and hopefully that will help you. Just some points about invoicing and payment policies. Not being an accountant, not being a bookkeeper or anything else like that, but having quite a bit of experience in my own businesses dealing with a lot of financials. Just some things to think about. One is you might want to think about publishing on your website your policies, so that when clients come to if you have a online payment solution, say you have a PayPal button on your website where people can pay for your services. For, say, you have a package that has a flat fee, they can go to your website, there goes the button to pay for services, and they can then check out through PayPal either with a credit or debit card, or through the Bill Me Later program, or through their PayPal account directly. Well, put your policy there. Tell them, hey, by the way, we're net 15, or hey, if you want to pay delinquent, if you want to pay later than this, there is a small fee that will be associated with that, that will accrue by X amount over Y time. And this just keeps everybody on the same page, but repeating it and reiterating it gives them the opportunity to say, you know what, hey, maybe I will pay a little bit early, because then that will get me a discount, and that means you as a business owner get the money sooner, which means you can get that into cash flow and off your records, off your accounts receivable records faster, and everybody's happier for it. Okay, so publish it far and wide, put it on your invoices, put it in your agreements. Many times I don't see these things in the actual agreements, whether it be a fee agreement or a contract that's being signed between parties. I don't see the invoicing and payment policies actually in there. So it's like, yes, you have to pay me, but you don't actually tell me how or when or where even, fundamentally saying, this is our legal address on our contract, but not having the billing address, where to send payment in the contract, equates to the loss of centralization of data, because everybody is using the agreement and the contract as the sort of the document to look to, whether that be the statement of work where you've put together those pieces, or whatever it is, like all of those agreements, put that information in there and make it easy for people to be able to find. Numerate or enumerate your payment forms, and make sure that people know whether there's going to be a deliverable deadline impact. For example, in the graphic design industry, where there might be print deliverables or release forms, they're usually there's a payment involved before the design gets taken and sent to the printer, and then after the printer has received their payment, then they will release the deliverables to the client, and so on and so forth. Make sure that you're telling people these things, because many times if you're working with other small businesses or you're working with clients who are not familiar, you're going to create conflict for yourself, because there has been a lack of communication about those published policies. Make sure that they know about late fees. And if you're unsure, go ahead and have your bookkeeper, your accountant, and or attorney look at the language of the published policy. That can be very, very useful for getting, just sort of a second set of eyes to make sure that you haven't missed something that might be useful. Next up is to set your invoice due dates. Think about it. Think about how your invoice due dates affect the cash flow needs of the business. Many times you can look over the course of prior years' accounting reports. You can look at your cash flow reports, your income statements, and so on and so forth, and you can start to chart, oh, you know what? In June, we typically have sort of low months. So we need to be able to stabilize that income by invoicing our clients a little bit earlier than normal. And that means that maybe you can have a conversation with those clients, or if you have a seasonal business where you might have various things going on, well, knowing that the invoice due dates are set in such a way helps you be able to know, oh, you know what, we've got to actually save a little bit of money, for these invoices so that we have enough money to pay during the slow season. during our slow periods. So those invoice dates are really important, and I think people sort of willy-nilly just sort of, put them together. I think it's important for you to think thoughtfully about when you send out those invoice dates. If you convert to an online invoicing software from paper invoices, this can be a huge benefit for you because, like I said earlier, you can then look at the reports in a digital format, and therefore you can see these things in the aggregate. You can see them charted visually, whether they be in a graph format or a pie chart or over across a timeline or other kinds of things. You can really see a lot more in online invoicing software than you can in paper invoices, and so I really think that the days of the paper invoice are, I think, done for small business owners because it just really fundamentally, creates more inefficiency, more work, more errors, and more fraud. Okay, so reduce the number of paper invoices, and there are really great services out there that actually can produce it. I'll talk about one of them, FreshBooks, that allows you to be able to send paper invoices through their online system for clients who still require it. Okay, so you can send paper invoices, but at least using the digital system to be able to generate the invoices so that you can track it effectively. The other thing I really love about invoicing software is their ability to set reminders. So all of the software that I'll be showing you in terms of invoicing has the ability for you to go ahead and schedule reminders. And these reminders can be set so that you have, say you want to remind the client that you have an invoice that's due in 30 days, you get a notice and reminder, the client gets a notice or reminder 15 days before it's due, then 7, then 3, then maybe they get an invoice reminder on the day of, or you can set it to say once it's overdue that they get a reminder maybe 3 days or 7 days or 15 days after it is then overdue. And this, of course, gets you communicating with the client in a consistent fashion, or all of your clients in a consistent fashion, and it makes sure that they're reminded, because most often than not, it's just because something else took that vendor's attention or that client's attention, and they just didn't get around to making that payment. So you can sort of overcome the inefficiencies or the lack of productivity structure of other businesses and your clients by having a consistent system. Plus, sometimes it's you feel emotional about responding and asking people to pay you the money you deserve. And that's difficult as small business owners. I think, sales and collections, accounts receivable are those two areas where it's really tough for small business owners to talk to their clients and potential clients and their clients about the money side of things, right? And so these reminders are automated, and they're just, they're stock template language. The business, the client doesn't, doesn't feel chided because it's you writing a very custom letter talking to them. It's kind of generic on purpose, and I think that creates a level of emotional distance that maybe, for most, I think probably for most small business owners, I think is a good thing. Okay, so they just go out automated. It says, hey, this is unpaid. Could you please pay it? And that increases, payments. I know it has for me. As soon as we enabled the reminders in our system, we actually started getting paid, up to 10 days faster for those class of clients who tend to be delinquent or, sort of no pay for some period of time. They're the 60 or 90 day out clients. They tend to pay faster when those reminders then start bombarding them, because they need it's not really bombarding, it's just, if you get 6 reminders, clearly somebody's looking to get paid, and they can't say that they didn't get it. It's one of those things where the system shows that the emails have been sent and they've been reminded. This just gives you a certain level of comfort, and that way when you do pick up the phone and talk to them, you can say, hey, by the way, I noticed in the system there was a reminder that went out, and they can say, oh yeah, I'm going to pay it, and therefore you can sort of have that as an anchor to talk to them about. Okay, I really like the idea when you're talking about taking payments is to give multiple online payment options. Okay, so if you're going to give people options to pay, you really want to be able to say, okay, well, I want you to be able to pay by I want to give you the option of paying by debit and credit, so if somebody has, their Visa sitting next to them, they can make that payment. Or if they're a small business owner who primarily receives their payments through PayPal, or maybe they're a vendor or contractor who receives most of their payments through PayPal, they can then pay with the money that's already sitting in their account. Okay, so because of the nature of the fact that people have money now sitting in all of these various payment portals, they have a Google Wallet balance, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and they have their debit and credit card for their various, savings accounts, checking accounts and credit card accounts. It's like they've got money stashed in all of these very disparate places, and many times don't have that organized. And so this gives you the ability to say, okay, well, wherever you have that money, you can pay. Okay, so giving them lots of online payment options, I think, is always a good thing. Next, don't be afraid to get help. And I don't mean that just from the professional perspective. Obviously a bookkeeper or an accountant or someone like that to be able to help you is important. But many times when it comes to getting help for, say, an outstanding bill, again, small business owners tend to be a little bit emotional about it, right? Especially if you're a solopreneur or micropreneur, you know all of your clients. You know them potentially personally, but also you get to know them pretty closely in the course of business, and that can be very difficult when things go delinquent and potentially there is a collections situation or something like that, right? And so you sometimes just need a little bit of distance. So maybe you ask a colleague or a friend who's not associated with the situation at all, some other third party, to maybe make the phone call and call on your behalf as a part of the company and saying, hey, I'm calling on behalf of, XYZ Consulting, and we just noticed this bill was coming out, was coming delinquent, and we just wanted to sort of know when we were going to get paid. And by and large, clients appreciate the support and the understanding and that kind of thing, and will typically, then let you know what's going on and how they're going to pay. But you have gotten the appropriate help in just getting over that hurdle. If you're not doing the collections, if you're not making the phone calls, get some help. And that might mean having your accountant or bookkeeper call on your behalf, or that might mean engaging a collections agency. You decide what's appropriate in the situation, but really don't let fear cause you to go out of business because you're not willing to get paid for the work that you've done, that you deserve. You did the work. Why wouldn't you get paid, right? I really believe that you should have a morning dedicated to invoicing and accounts receivable, etc. And so just sort of the, whether it's, I like this to be much more discreet. So I like it to be just handling and getting paid, right? So the invoicing on a morning, say you say every Wednesday morning I'm going to spend 30 minutes just getting out my invoices, right? And so that way all the week for the prior 5 days would be collected together, the 5 business days, or if you work 7 days a week, the prior 7 days, and choosing to get all of those invoices together, and that way you can review them, make sure they're correct, apply any discounts, do any credit memos that are necessary within this accounting software, and then get it out there. Okay, and that way you can sort of deal with all of those things, and that way if you have to call a client regarding getting paid, you can make that phone call during that period so that it's all sort of siloed within that period of time so that you don't lose it. And if you miss a week, you can always roll back around to the following Wednesday and do it then. Okay, so you're not always behind the 8 ball. You can really be ahead of it by choosing a particular day where you have your, I want to get paid hat on. Okay. Next is using unique invoicing numbers in your invoicing software. So with today's software, it's really easy for people to be able to do all kinds of fraudulent things online, right? They can create PDFs that look like your material. They can change your invoice to make it look different. But with a unique invoicing numbering system, you can then always be tracking your invoices. So, things like don't start with, the invoicing systems usually, start with like 01 or 001. Start with some number that is, that is unique and one that you started. So you might start off with, 6,000 as the invoicing number that you start with, so that when you see an invoice or your staff gets an invoice, sent back, with for the client's name, and it says invoice number 322, you can say, okay, something doesn't make sense here because the invoice clearly is not within our numbering range. You might even use letters and numbers so that invoices go out with some letter number combination if your software allows for it. So use unique numbering, because I think that can sometimes help reduce some of the theft and fraud issues that do happen, that at least I've seen happen with online invoicing systems. And then finally in this section, I wanted to talk about the fact that your invoices are really a great opportunity to thank your clients for doing business with you. You know, it's your time to tell them that they're supporting a small business, to engage in their local small business communities by working with you and the people that you work with. I think it's always a great opportunity to be able to do that. I'm sorry, I have two more items here. So the next item is to test your tools on the client or vendor side. So this is something I always see sort of problematic, is that you create or set up the invoicing software, and I'm going to be talking about several of these today, and you're going to go ahead and set it all up, and then your client's going to call you and say, I tried to pay through your invoicing online software and I couldn't figure it out. It just wouldn't work. And you don't know, you didn't check it out, and so therefore you have no way to help them. So you just sort of, dead on the phone, and maybe you apologize, and then you have to go back through all of this process to figure out what happened. You should really test the tool on the client or vendor side so that you can see how easy it is to make, is it to make a payment. Do you have to jump through hoops to be able to do so? Are you taken off-site, off the website, multiple times? Maybe like PayPal, you're sent to PayPal's website typically to make that payment and then brought back to your website. Fine. That's just, one website away. But if you have to be taken 2 and 3 websites away, people are going to start to get fishy about whether or not it's a legitimate, payment tool. So you really want to do that to make sure that it's a streamlined process, but also so you can see what happens, and when people have issues, you can help them and walk them through that. Okay. Also, sort of going back to that, sort of being grateful, you also want to use your invoicing as a marketing opportunity. So if your business is eligible under Google My Business for reviews or ratings, make sure to put links in there to those reviews and ratings and ask them to give you feedback. We'd love to hear your feedback. Here goes places where you can do that. You can go to Google Maps and let us know how you're doing. You can go to Yelp or TripAdvisor or other rating websites that are pertinent to your business, and go ahead and do that. Make sure that you're also cross-selling services. So if somebody, if you're a family attorney and you just handled someone's divorce case, well, make sure that if you haven't had that conversation with them about maybe doing some estate work and getting their will, power of attorney, and advanced medical directive and such put together now that they're divorced, that's something that needs to sort of be on that invoice or that online system where they're making that payment, to let them know that that's something that they can hire you for if that's a service that you provide. So make sure that you're cross-selling, cross-marketing, your services that you provide. Invoices typically get attention of clients, right? Because they're opening them, they're looking at them and reviewing them before they're paying, and therefore it's a good opportunity for you to be able to get in front of them. All right, now on the making payment side. One is to pay timely. It really, it seems sort of, simple and simplistic in its sense, but a lot of small business owners pay delinquent, and then they don't realize that Dun & Bradstreet, the company that sort of keeps business credit scores and analysis, they can be tracking that information, especially if the companies to which you're paying are reporting that to Dun & Bradstreet. And so if you don't have a Dun & Bradstreet, what's called a DUNS number, D-U-N-S, you should get one, and that helps build your business credit, which means that you can establish credit and therefore do the things that you do as you on behalf of the business, then have the business take over those things like getting a credit card or anything else like that. The business really needs to be established to having its own credit profile in order to be able to do those things by itself. And it can't do that if you are being delinquent in payments and the companies that you're paying them to are reporting that to Dun & Bradstreet. Okay, so pay timely. It just makes sense. Next is just similar to invoicing and setting up a time for AR. this is really a great time to set up a morning, weekly for accounts payable. So you should really be designing your weeks so that you maybe have, 15, 20 minutes or more if you need it to just focus on getting bills paid. Okay, how do I make the payments? How do I get people paid? I just, once a week, dedicate some time. And note that I typically talk about doing these money things in the morning. You have greater levels of willpower. It sort of gets done and out of the way, and you could just go on to more important things with the business. Not that paying and being paid aren't important, but because they are important, we're prioritizing them in our weeks and days. Okay. Note, even with help, you must, as a small business owner, especially in the micropreneur and solopreneur world where you might be putting this off to somebody that you very highly trust, you must remember that the reports must be checked against bank records, okay? This is just because of the fact that there aren't as many hands on deck, and so therefore mistakes happen, and fraud, especially internally, the people you trust the most will sometimes be the ones who commit the greatest, levels of fraud against your business. You must you must keep your bank records and reports in view. You need to review them. You need to review them on the regular. Okay. Next up. If you're going to do any kind of expense reporting for reimbursements or anything like that, make sure that you're using a tool. I suggest Expensify. It's a great tool and integrates with a lot of the tools that I'll be talking about. So if you do a lot of expenses, if you travel, or if you have meals and entertainment, or other kinds of movement that you have to make around paying for things and then getting reimbursed, make sure that you're using some kind of expense tracking. And again, this just keeps honest people honest. And, that might mean talking to the bank and getting separate cards for separate staff with particular, limits so that they have a bank card or credit card and it's, directly correlated to them. And therefore the expensing and so on and so forth is highly trackable to the person. If your business is a little bit larger, I think very importantly that you should separate roles for the entering, approving, and payment of things, okay? Why? Well, if someone's going to commit fraud and they do all of your books, well, guess what? They have the ability to control and hide those things from you, and therefore it's a much more likely that you won't find out until, a much later period, if at all, or something goes remarkably wrong and it impacts the business detrimentally. Okay, so we really want to separate roles. So if you have a staff, you want to basically separate those three roles if it's possible. I know it's not possible in a solopreneur position, but if you're doing everything, you don't have that much concern about fraud, right? You have to worry about other people maybe hacking or phishing your systems in order to access your money. You're not worried about someone internally. But in the micropreneur and larger, where you're actually employing people and they're helping you with managing those books, just make sure that you have those kinds of physical checks in place. That is, different people are looking at things because they'll find the discrepancies and you'll be able to handle those issues faster. If you have a lot of 1099 contractors, there are several services out there that will help you manage the W-9 and the 1099 IRS requirements of that. So you can use, I always suggest to people using payable.com. It's a service that does that for people, but that can handle that. If you are a government contractor as well, remember that you're going to have to handle W-8 requirements for any foreign workers, and so there are that requirement also is there as well. And I believe that payable.com handles W-2s and that kind of thing, so I think they can do some of that as well. So if you have a small business and you want to handle some of the W-2 stuff, I think Payable can help you in that way. Okay, so I just wanted to go through those quick sort of best practices, and I'm happy to answer any questions about what I talked about, but we're going to move on to the tools and cover those tools in the time that we have left, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions when we get done. So tools you can use. Let's start with taking payments, okay? So in the taking payments realm, there's the two sort of big so there's the big Goliath, right? Goliath is PayPal, and then there is Stripe, which is a little less known. The two things that you see on the screen are primarily what I call, or what are called, payment gateways. So PayPal acts as multiple things. They act as, payment processor, payment gateway, and a merchant account, okay? So they handle all of those sort of merchant services under the umbrella. They're the people who process the credit card. They're the ones who hold that money before it moves into your bank account, and they can act as sort of the upfront piece, the e-commerce piece, in terms of having a button on a website or using the checkout tool and so on and so forth. And this is something that service professionals don't frequently come into contact regarding e-commerce because they typically don't have products they're selling. But PayPal can do all of those things, but at the very least, if you're going to use invoicing software that can take payment, usually PayPal is the primary vehicle for being able to do that. That's the one that most of these these invoicing software use as the payment processor and the payment gateway. Okay, so you're going to need a PayPal account in some way, shape, or form as you're making your way through navigating taking payments either online or by phone on your mobile. Okay. The next is Stripe. Stripe is really a payment processor for the more techie folks. Developers use it because it's really well coordinated and really well documented for being able to easily implement into e-commerce platforms and other kinds of things. But Stripe has made really great inroads in several types of software, and at least in one of the tools that I'll be talking about, Stripe acts as your payment gateway and does a really fantastic job of doing the reporting, and it's just easy to use, and I just really like it. And so it's comparable pricing to the fees that PayPal or any of those others will charge in terms of taking payments by credit card online. So I highly recommend Stripe for that reason. So you're going to need probably one or two. I like to have at least two ways of taking payments from clients. Why? Because PayPal is kind of crazy. All kinds of things happen with PayPal, and you want to be able to always be able to take money from your clients, right? You always want to be able to receive payments. And so if something happens to PayPal, and this happened to me once, PayPal had some kind of problem internally in their system, and therefore my account was basically inactive during that period. Well, I still needed to have clients be able to pay me, so having the additional option really was helpful. So I just, engaged, the invoices to use Stripe, and voila, now we were able to continue, basically kept business continuity while we resolved the PayPal issue. Some kind of, overseas fraud thing that was happening, and they were trying to protect us. That's totally understandable, but, that also impacted our ability to get our clients to pay us. So, PayPal is great until it doesn't work. So always having a backup solution is really great. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hop over to a couple of other things, and so one of the things that a lot of business owners have is this idea of taking subscriptions or other kinds of recurring payment as a service professional. So if you have a membership, program, if you have some kind of subscription or recurring payment program, this is really great for being able to do that. This service is called Recurly, and so they give you this wonderful little dashboard, and you can create your subscriptions, and it just runs. It runs in the background, and they do a really fantastic job of handling what's called churn. So churn is where a credit card is declined for any number of reasons, right? It's hit a limit, there was some kind of fraudulent activity on the credit card, and so therefore it was temporarily deactivated, a client's expiration of a card expired, right before it was charged. All those things happen, and small business owners lose money because that happens. And so Recurly has figured out how to, what they call, repair the decline. So they repair the transaction by looking up new information, getting information from the credit card processors and the credit card companies so they can effectively run those charges. And so they say that on average they can increase your credit card revenue by 7%. That's not so bad. So Recurly is a great service to sort of look at if you have recurring payments. Another one for taking payments online is a platform called Gumroad. Now, Gumroad is actually a platform for, they call it for creators, and I think that's a very broad term. So they primarily sell, for creators who are selling digital or physical goods, and they want to just create a really quick and easy, storefront, product page. And but something they also handle are subscriptions. So if you're handling recurring fees from clients, instead of having to send an invoice and get paid for it every month or every week or every quarter, you can just basically set up Gumroad's subscription service, and it can just charge them on the regular, and it handles all that stuff for them. And that means if someone needs to unsubscribe or they need to change their subscription, they can do that all within the system automatically. PayPal also does have that functionality, by the way. So for those who are already using PayPal, know that PayPal does have the ability for you to have subscriptions. The interface is a little clunky, I have to admit, but it does do it. So if you need to, you can go ahead and do that. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit to the invoicing side of software now. So there are several software that I recommend to clients for invoicing, and I'm going to go through the ones that I typically recommend and or see a lot of my clients using. Okay, the first that I recommend the most across the board is a product called Wave. So Wave is an accounting software. It has payroll services and a full accounting suite and all of that kind of fun stuff in there, and that's on one side. But they also have this independent application that ties directly into Wave accounting, obviously, but you can use it as a standalone tool. And so waveapps.com/invoice takes you to this page, and you sign up. You can sign up through that, or you can sign up through with email, or you can sign up with a Google account, a G Suite account, and it logs you right in, and you set up your business, and it can also handle personal finances, which is really cool. So it connects to your bank, and you can sort of look at what's going on in terms of charts and graphs and forecasting tools, but it then gives you the ability to just create a very easy invoice. Okay, and so we use this in one of our divisions of the company, and I love it. I have a mobile application. I can create an invoice while I'm walking down the street, select a client, select the services we provided, the number of hours or the package that they've purchased, and write a quick message, hit send, and it emails it off to the client. Done and done. Okay, by default, it's got all the reminders set. If there's, if the client looks at the invoice, I get a little notification within Wave that tells me that I've received it, and Wave comes at the whopping price of $0. So it is free to use. You just pay. You connect to Stripe, so this is a tool that uses Stripe, and so you connect to Stripe, and Stripe is the payment portal. So you pay for the fee that Stripe uses internally. You pay the fee for what Stripe charges internally for the payment processing. Okay, so it's really great for being able to just very quickly create invoices. It does it, in like this really easy interface. You get reports. You can see, oh, I've got I'm owed X dollars. I've got X dollars overdue, and then you can just click on those invoices, and it gives you really easy ways to follow up and engage with clients through the interface. Okay, so that's Wave. That's my first choice. Second up is a Canadian company called FreshBooks, and FreshBooks is fairly well known in the community, and so they have primarily this invoicing software, but they sort of have quite a bit more accounting stuff behind the scenes. But for the most part, FreshBooks is what I'm talking about here is the invoicing functions here. They have this new interface, so they went through a whole complete UX UI redesign, which is user experience, user interface redesign. So that means they made it look completely different, all new code on the front end, and it looks really brilliant. It's very easy. It's much easier than the old interface, and at that time they've actually also done away with the free plan. They used to have a free plan, but basically they now give you a free trial, and then you do have to pay a small fee monthly in order to be able to utilize it, but I think it's fully worthwhile. We actually use FreshBooks in another division of my company, and I love it. I really do. It's a great piece of software, and it's always my second recommendation behind Wave. If a client doesn't like Wave, then I know they're going to love FreshBooks. So it's a great piece of software and works really well. And again, it has those same functions for being able to use PayPal or Stripe, and connects to you know, the online payments very, very easily, so people can go ahead and do that. So you could just create an invoice. Again, it's very easy invoice creation, and you know, again, like Wave, it connects backward to the accounting software that's built into it, so you can connect all of that data together. It's not a silo of data, an island unto itself. Okay, so that's FreshBooks. Next up is Zoho. For those of you who use Zoho, Zoho is a suite of many different products. They have a CRM, contacts, email. Just as an aside, Zoho actually is a free email platform. You can get up to 50. So if you're a small business, you have under 50 email accounts, you know, under 50 employees, you can use Zoho completely for free using their platform. And of course, they're hoping that you use Zoho Mail, and therefore you'll then start to use their other paid products, but whatever, you don't have to. Anyway, so if you want some free email hosting, go with Zoho if you'd like. Anyway, so the Zoho platform also has an invoicing tool. This is not something that I use, but I actually hear a lot of my clients using it, because if they're connected to the Zoho CRM or Zoho, you know, email, or you know, they're using it for other business processes within the suite, is just a natural connection point for them to go ahead and connect Zoho invoices, and that's at zoho.com/invoice. And next up is, of course, the granddaddy of all accounting, which is Intuit's you know, QuickBooks product, and QuickBooks Online has invoicing built into it. Again, many of my clients use this tool, and so I used to use QuickBooks in the olden days. You know, it's going back probably maybe 13 or so years, and I used it all the time, but never really quite used the online platform, and so I'm just getting sort of my feet wet in terms of using QuickBooks Online, just to sort of see what it's all about. And they've come a long way to have parity with some of the platforms that started online, and therefore they're still sort of catching up. So in this case, you know, QuickBooks Online has to catch up to Wave, as well as the next product I'm about to talk about. But QuickBooks definitely does invoices. And so the next product is Xero. Xero Accounting is Xero, and Xero Accounting allows you to be able to create invoices, and then, you know, have clients pay by credit card or with PayPal using their service. Okay, and you can try it for free. There's a free trial and a small fee for using the accounting software as well. Xero is one of those products that it's actually highly integrated into the G Suite platform. So I wouldn't be a very good Google Small Business Advisor if I didn't say that if you really want highly integrated, highly, you know, tailored integrations with the rest of G Suite, Xero is definitely a great product for that. Internally, we use, like I said, Wave for the stuff that's connected to G Suite, and it works just fine, but it doesn't have as highly integrated parts as Xero does. So that's just, if you have everything is Google in your world, then Xero would probably be a really great accounting software for you. Okay, so there's Xero. Let's see now. We're going to hop back over to the slide deck, and we're going to talk about making payments. So making payments now switches gears for the other side, which is giving money away, which a business has to do, and some of the tools you can use for making payments ends up repeating some of them, right? So the one, of course, is PayPal, and many of the tools that I talked about help you track bills. So, for example, Wave, you know, and FreshBooks and all of those others, they let you track bills, but they don't actually let you make payments. So I wanted to specifically talk about the products that really allow you to help make payments, right? So in this particular case, PayPal is, again, one of those products where you can have money sitting in a PayPal balance, you know, so that's why they're a merchant account. You know, they hold money there as an intermediary for you, and then you can make payments PayPal to PayPal account through that service. Okay, so you can do that, and that's through your mobile phone or online. Really great tool. One that a lot of people don't recognize and don't understand so well, and I'd probably blame Google a little bit for this, is Google Wallet. Google Wallet is a great platform for being able to send and receive money, but really paying people through Google Wallet is really cool. So here's how it works. You have your Google Wallet app, you go to google.com/wallet, you create an account, you attach your bank account, your business account to it, and so on and so forth, and then you want to send money to a contractor or a vendor, or pay your employee for reimbursing them for something that they spent money on. Well, you just open up Gmail and you tell them that you open up the little Google Wallet thing to send money, and you can send money to them. Or you can open up your Google Wallet app and say, I want to send $30 to Bill, for half of my meal, and you just send it, and then Bill gets the money, and a notification from Google. All they have to do is acknowledge the receipt of the money, and then on their side, and they get their money in. If you're sending regular money back and forth between vendors and you, it's super simple, super seamless, and then you can just transfer that money from, like if you're sending money that's Google Wallet to Google Wallet, you can then transfer it to your bank account. So you just basically move it from Google Wallet, very similar to PayPal, from their merchant account into it. And then for other types of accounts, it depends on the bank, but you can actually have it automatically, just as soon as the money touches your Google Wallet, it'll automatically push into your bank account, so you don't have to do anything with it. So Google Wallet is really great for a lot of those kinds of one-to-one payment things, okay? Another thing that I've sort of wanted to bring to people's attention is that if you sell on Amazon, or if you get any kinds of Amazon credits, those kinds of things, pay attention to the fact that you can actually pay with Amazon on a lot of websites. So look for that checkout with Amazon, and so if clients are paying you in Amazon things, or say you get a gift card from a client for Amazon, you can actually pay for some of your things using the Amazon checkout button if it's available there. So think about how you're purchasing on Amazon with your money, and how you're getting money sent to you through Amazon, especially if you sell, say, an ebook on Amazon, or sell digital goods, or sell physical products on Amazon. That account is available to you. It's just like a PayPal account. It's money sitting there, and you could potentially be able to use it to pay people through that service. The other item is Android Pay, and Android Pay is Google's mobile payment solution. And there's a couple of really fascinating things happening with Android Pay right now, but the thing that primarily affects businesses as much as I think it does is that, in the service realm, is that PayPal and Android have recently made a partnership, and the partnership is going to allow, if you have an Android phone, which, again, like most of the world's population has an Android, and therefore, you're on the side of most people, if you're accepting Android payments. But as a business owner and making payments, if you have an Android device that has Android Pay on it, you can actually pay inside of Chrome, the Google Chrome browser, which is the most widely used browser in the world. You can now pay inside of it, if not now, in the next couple of weeks, through, if you have Android Pay enabled, you can pay through Chrome very quickly and easily. Okay, so that means that all you have to do is, on your Android phone, use your fingerprint, authentication. You fingerprint, and you're paid. Okay, so as a small business owner, if there are any websites that formerly took PayPal, if you have Android Pay also, just know that you can now pay very, very quickly and seamlessly using that. Okay, so you can put PayPal into Android Pay, and then pay through PayPal at merchants, at retail stores, which is great with your phone. But also online in the mobile Chrome browser, you're now able to make these seamless PayPal transactions using the Android Pay software on your phone. Super cool, super convenient. Okay, I wanted to hop over and talk about a couple of other tools for some special cases and some other things. So let's just talk about a couple of these. One is, as I said earlier, Payable handles contractor payments. They handle direct deposit and W-2, W-9, W-8 forms. So if you do government contracting, or if you have just a lot of contractors throughout the course of the year, this handles all of that compliance stuff with the IRS and is very, very useful. Okay. Next up, if you are in the federal market and you have to, sort of handle the 8A standards or any of those government contracting standards, I know that a lot of clients use some kind of compliance software, especially if you have foreign, workers and that kind of thing. This is one tool that I came across called CertCapture by Avalara, and so that's on your screen there. And what they do is they handle all of that, sort of administration. And again, you have to be of a certain size, with a certain, or at least having that certain requirement. If you don't know what you're doing when it comes to, managing all of these, forms, Avalara's CertCapture can help you out. Okay. If you are doing a lot of accounts payable, okay, if you have, quite a lot of accounts payable, you might look to an AP automation tool, and that's an accounts payable and payment automation tool. And so the AP automation world is pretty, broad, but this tool seems to be fairly focused on smaller businesses. It's called MineralTree, and they have a mobile application. They have two-factor authentication for security. They really have a good set of mechanisms in place for being able to quickly and easily handle accounts payable when you have lots and lots of it, okay? So if you're a small business and you're feeling overwhelmed, burdened by all of that, I think this can help you. Okay, and then last but not least is a tool called Rubberstamp.io, and Rubberstamp handles if you deal with a lot of purchase orders. So if you're dealing with a lot of like educational institutions or nonprofit organizations or NGOs and that kind of thing, and you are being bombarded and sort of overwhelmed by their systems being arcane, this system really helps you handle that. So it handles all of those purchase orders and so on and so forth, and especially if you do project management of these kinds of things, this can be really helpful. But Rubberstamp basically handles all of that, purchase order processing stuff for you, and at least from the demos I've seen, it's a really cool product, and so you want to check it out if you want to simplify the purchase order process. So with that, just had a couple of other special case items that I wanted to talk about, and then we'll close out for question and answer. Is if you're using Meetup, then you'll likely be using WePay. So I know that there are lots of service professionals who have some kind of Meetup where they use that as a mechanism for running a group, some kind of program where they meet their clients and they pay within that tool. WePay is the platform that you'll want to have an account with. And if you're doing international payments, again, this falls into that category of maybe you're doing government contracting, maybe you're working with international workers, that kind of thing. There are two services. One's called Flywire, which is great for taking payments from overseas clients, and the other is Veeam, and V-E-E-M, yeah, making payments overseas. It makes it really simple to be able to make those payments overseas. So I recommend that you check those out if you need to figure out those pieces. Okay, so with that, I will turn it over to you, Tracy, for Q&A, and then I'll put my email address on the final slide for those who want to email me afterward with any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ray. How do you enable Android Pay?
Sure. So if your phone is capable of doing Android Pay, it has to have what's called NFC, Near Field Communication, a chip inside the card. And so you just go to the Google Play Store, type in Android Pay, and install it. At that point, it will walk you through. It'll take you through a little tutorial. Your bank, you'll need your bank cards, and it accepts most of the major banks now around the country and the world, and so you should be able to get your bank card inserted. It then it does what's called, it does sort of virtualizing of numbers, so it doesn't actually use your card when it runs transactions, but you see it as a normal transaction on your side for security purposes. But yeah, you'll just download the app, log into your Google account through Android Pay, and follow the process that it tells you.
Great. If you use both PayPal and Stripe, would you have both of them on your online payment form or just one?
Typically just one. I personally think that it's just it's good as a backup tool for you to be able to have. So most clients don't care which credit card processing service you use unless they happen to have a PayPal account. So I would probably survey my clients and ask them. And so I've learned over time that my clients don't care. Even if they have a PayPal account, they're typically going to pay us however they want to, but it's typically not from PayPal funds. So they're just paying with a credit card or paying with a debit card. And so we've chosen, in the different divisions to use the one most commonly. So in one we use PayPal, the other we use Stripe, and that's just based on those communities, those customers who typically use those items, but we only use one in each of them. But if we had to, we'd switch it if something were to happen.
Okay. Is it common to pay fees to PayPal and to your website hosts like Squarespace? Any advice about how to minimize this?
Sure. So I would get on the phone with any vendors like that, your web hosting service like Squarespace. I don't know what they're charging you and for what, whether they're charging you for payment processing and the e-commerce solution on top of your current hosting, and whether or not that can be replaced by just having PayPal. PayPal is free to have the account, but they charge you obviously for every time you transact a credit card, right? But if the client has a PayPal account already and is paying you with their PayPal balance, that transaction has no cost associated with it. So what you might want to do is to tell your customers that if they transfer money from their account up to their PayPal balance and then pay you through PayPal, you're not paying that credit card processing fee. It's a little bit longer and your client has one more step to do. But if they're willing, then you're reducing that cost. So that's just one suggestion, one little hack that I found works when you're sort of when you feel as though you're getting sort of gouged by credit card processing fees.
All right, a couple more questions, right? And I should have asked this one back in the beginning. Is Expensify a free resource?
Expensify is not free. There is a fee for it. You can trial it, but there is some small fee for it. We use our own internal expensing process, but so I don't use Expensify, but yeah, there's a small fee for it.
What payment platform would you use / offer for a product-oriented business, for example, custom cakes ordered online?
So for anything that is custom, I would probably use a tool that allowed you to seamlessly transact without being taken away from the website, right? And that's just because that's a more high-end customer. So I would want a tool that did that. Depending upon your platform, if you're on WordPress, then that's something like WooCommerce, that allows you to be able to run all of those pieces. That's a free plugin, but then you can have the components added on for payment and so forth, in the back end, and you can use any payment portal, PayPal, Stripe, and otherwise. And so that's on WordPress, and then it depends on the platform you're currently running whether or not you would do that. But I would want that whatever you're using to be an e-commerce solution, which is not what we talked about today, but we actually have some upcoming webinars that'll be talking about e-commerce, and you would want that to be really something that was very bespoke. Just like the custom cake, you would want it to be bespoke for your website so that people felt the experience stayed there on the website.
And then the question was, what is the WordPress plugin name?
WooCommerce, W-O-O Commerce.
All right, I got a couple more questions, but I'm going to go ahead and close it out. So if there are people that have to head on with their day, they can do that. If not, we'll answer the last two questions after I do close out. Thank you all for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and it'll be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow you'll be receiving a follow-up email on this webinar, and there'll be an evaluation link in that email. Please help us to continue to improve our training by taking the time to complete that evaluation. If you want to complete it now, I did post it in the chat window. And our next webinar is June 1st, Getting Found on Google, Search Engine Optimization for Local Small Business. So our last two questions, does QuickBooks do invoicing and payments?
So QuickBooks does invoicing, but they also don't do outbound payments. They handle, again, like all of the accounting software, at least as far as I'm aware, for QuickBooks Online. The QuickBooks Offline, the desktop software may do this, but I'm actually not sure of that. But QuickBooks Online, as far as the last time I checked, doesn't do outbound payments. FreshBooks is the only one that I know of that you can like check a box and pay some small, it's like a nominal fee for it to actually issue a paper invoice from the system. And at one time, you were able to receive invoices from other vendors and actually make payment within the FreshBooks platform. In the new interface, in the current version of FreshBooks, I haven't seen anything about that in the system, but I'm presuming they'll want to bring that product back. So as far as I know, QuickBooks Online does not currently have it, and they may have it in the future, or at least they're not telling me that it's there. And but FreshBooks, I know, had the ability in the old platform, and will hopefully have it in the new platform once they've gotten that up and running again.
Okay. And last question: best tools to receive money from foreign clients. Which tools should I use for paying foreign employees?
So in terms of payroll services, we're going to do another webinar on that at some point. But I'm gonna withhold that at the present moment. I'm gonna say come to that webinar because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on when you talk about foreign payroll and foreign employees and payroll and all that other fun stuff. That's sort of not under the purview of today. So we'll talk about that in a future webinar. A good question.
Great, Ray. Thank you so much for your webinar today. Great information, as usual.